you and Jan tell us how, when it started.
Well, it was built in 1954. I was a senior in high school, and we lived here, and I vowed I would not ever live here permanently. And I've learned since never to say never. But it was like living in a fishbowl. You never knew who was going to come through the front door, or for that matter, the back door. Alec had his own little special room off to the side, and I had the dormitory room. I guess we all slept upstairs, didn't we? Upstairs in a kind of an unfinished room. I think eventually there was a division put in the upstairs, which is now finished into a nice living area. Of course, I married and left home and left Alec here, and he finished school in about 3 more years and went off to UT. And then we came back. We kind of came back a couple of times. Jan came back. We came back in 1969 when we built the units out in the back part, the first units. And Jan helped Daddy with the electrical and just helped build it. They were on the roof during the middle of the summer in some pretty hot weather, and they'd have to get up pretty early in the morning to keep from sliding off the roof because the shingles were melting. Then we changed again and came back again. Oh, it was in '77 was when we officially came back, and ran it from then on up until the last couple of years. And Alec's he's kind of been running it since then, and I'm glad. I'm tired of running a motel, but he's doing a good job with it, and I thought I wanted him to have a turn at it before it was too late. What else can I tell?
Tell us a little bit about the people who stayed here.
Oh, I learned early on that you can't trust everybody. And this was a real hard thing with me because Mother and Daddy were very trusting people. Daddy more so than Mother. But they had a motel meeting to go to one weekend, or for 2 or 3 days. And while they were gone, Mary Noden, which was Daddy's partner, and I don't know where little brother was. He was running around. He was too young to be involved or even want to be involved at this point. But anyway, we were looking after the motel that weekend. We had this nice young couple come in that were on their honeymoon. I can remember thinking they were such nice people. Well, they didn't have a clock. Well, like I say, I graduated from high school, and I had gotten the nicest little travel alarm that shuts up in the little leather case. And I was so proud of it. Decided that I would be generous and let these people use my clock. Needless to say, I never saw that clock again. They took it with them. That was my first real rude awakening that people they're not always like they seem.
You know, this property really, perhaps more than anything else, is the foundation for the city of Brentwood. Because Mother and Glenn had the idea of avoiding a strip mall sort of development of Brentwood, and planned to try to direct its growth perpendicular to the highway, and within a relatively short range. When Mother built her little shopping center down south of here, which was anchored by Harpeth Bank at the corner, and a little post office that was about the size of an elegant outhouse. Why, she was trying to, well, not only have a commercial success, but equally important to direct the growth to the west as opposed to stretching out, and there was a demand for commercial space. It was going to be provided somewhere, and this was what they did. She planned it, and Glenn was the one who built it for her.
And Daddy loved Williamsburg architecture.
And it was Williamsburg. In fact, when subsequently it was sold in a complicated triangular transaction, why she was able to impose on the land that she didn't own to the south the restriction that they likewise used use a Williamsburg type architecture there. But we did that, and then there was a move to develop the property down where Kroger is now, which was opposed by most of the Brentwood people, but which was being pushed through the county court in Williamson County by the land developers and by one of our magistrates, Mr. Thomas Gregory, who was working for one of the lawyers who was representing the people who was trying to get the zoning changed. And in open court, the judge informed all of us that it was his plan for the 15th Civil District, which is here, to support as a tax base the entire Williamson County. This did not sit real well. So we came back. I was the first secretary of the Brentwood Chamber of Commerce. And we came back and started rolling out plans to incorporate Brentwood at that time in order to control the zoning and to keep it from becoming a long highway of small stores and strip malls and what have you, facing the highway. So really, had it not been for the initial development here and the events that followed from that, I'm not sure what form Brentwood would have taken. Of course, later, why people came in from all over the world and built houses and felt that they had to have sidewalks and a water company and a fire company and a police force, which we've been contracting for up to then and getting much better service. So it now has become a large metropolis, but it all started right on this 5 acres that my grandfather bought from Mr. James Caldwell 72 years ago for a price that everybody thought was outrageous. He built his drugstore, and as I say, events have come full circle. There will be a drugstore again on this same property, carrying on the tradition which he started.
Well, Alex, this building really has played an important part in the business community of Brentwood too. Tell us a little about the business deals and the breakfast clubs and that sort of thing.
Well, there's just absolutely no telling how many business deals, big business deals that have been transacted in this building. I want to go back just a second. Dick was talking about the Chamber of Commerce. Chamber of Commerce was a family affair, I guess. Daddy was on the same group, and I think
he was president of the thing.
Well, he wrote the report, but I've got a copy of the report that they wrote recommending incorporation. So, and your mother was deeply involved, and it was a family affair. But the idea was to kind of protect Brentwood from the onslaught of Nashville from the north and Franklin from the south, as they had the vision back then to imagine that they might grow together. But and I think Daddy's the one that gets credit for them taking in as large an area. Bill McCord said everybody was just talking about the little business district. And Daddy said, no, if you're going to do it, you might as well get some land. And they took in the whole 15th Civil District, which is a pretty large sum of land, which I think is working out.
Yeah, they took in until they bumped up against the next city, really. And they would have taken that had people not been watching.
But back to business deals, there have been a lot of notable people come through here. Senator Kefauver, I think, used to come, has come in on occasion, and Tennessee Henry Ford, and just many entertainers. I don't know all the.
Well, Eddie is probably.
He's an
not only
ex-officio.
best known, but practically a member of the family.
Yeah.
They are.
And Barbara Mandrell was here. I remember when I was helping up here one time. All the boys in the kitchen were having a fit, and I had been away from here, and I didn't know.
We didn't know,
Yeah,
I didn't know who Barbara Mandrell was
One of
either.
the stories I remember hearing was that Calvin Hogan, when he started the Spur Oil Company, he got some of the ideas from building the station from this building, these bay windows. I wasn't
assume.
Yeah, yeah.
That is the elder code.
Yeah.
Oh,
But-
Mason code, Mason code,
Mason,
not
yeah,
council.
yeah, exactly. But anyhow, when this building was essentially the only building here, I mean, the Palm Club was across the street, and Puett's, and the Granary, little post office building down there, but when my grandfather built this place, this was out in the middle of the boonies. I mean, this is a gravel road. 1929 is the year they made this federal highway and paved the road. But they're just, you know, we used to play out in the street, but I mean, a car came along just every so often. It's hard to imagine this day and time with all the traffic that we have. But you might notice that there are lights all around the eaves and the gable to this building. Had to light it up. People had to be able to see it. People would drive out here on weekends and in the evening and have a soda or have a beer or a sandwich. Always serve sandwiches.
Let me mention the sandwiches. I don't.
Mention the sandwiches, yeah.
All right. Okay. For one thing, the sandwiches, there were several: tuna fish, a ham, pimento cheese, chicken salad. But the thing that I remember the most about the sandwiches, Alec always liked the pimento cheese, and I always liked the tuna fish. The tuna fish, Daddy would have little cans of tuna fish, as we know now, and he would only allow 6 olives to go in that 1 can of tuna fish. He was very frugal, but I always thought.
Talking about that honestly too, by the way.
I always thought they were pretty good, and Alec also liked baked roots, and I like Butterfingers, but we didn't touch the candy. One time he had this big candy counter out in the center of the floor out there, and it was all stacked up, but we didn't get to have any, but it was a real treat for us to have anything from the soda fountain or the candy. It was not like the children today that have stuff all the time.
But,
Well, when I started working out here, which was in 1940, grandfather was still active and actively involved with the business. And Eugenia was speaking of the sandwiches. One of my jobs was to make the sandwich. And I recall I was chopping up the celery for the chicken salad one day, and grandfather said, "Don't make the pieces so small, they've got to hold the bread apart."
I haven't heard that one.
But when the drugstore was originally built, it was a beautiful store. I mean, beautiful sliding glass display cases, and my sister mentioned
Soda fountain.
the soda fountain and the candy counter out here. My grandfather's theory was that a product well displayed is half sold. So he really went out of his way to make the displays pretty. They were.
You know, I remember there used to be a 5 and 10 cent store.
Well, when Daddy built 2 rooms on the room, it made it into a restaurant. The far room originally was a beauty parlor. Glenn Velker, what was her name?
Well, Possum Morgan ran that.
Well, no, but I mean, he came.
Dime store.
Possum Morgan,
The dime store.
when the Velkers left,
Wouldn't stay there.
he leased the place, rented the place, whatever, and became a 10-cent store. And then at some later date, well, I guess when we took the place back over in '76.
Became a party room. We had an awful lot of wedding receptions and rehearsal dinners and birthday
Civic
parties
clubs.
and civic clubs and down in that room.
And the hardware store was a grocery store.
Yeah.
It was
Really,
originally a
Yeah.
grocery store.
Yeah.
Hewitt Davis, yeah, that built that thing.
I never could figure out how Mother could feed so many people, because we lived back in the house, or when we were coming in and visiting. The kitchen, the living quarters of the motel were back in the back, and 2 or 3 people may come in, or people from the motel whom she would feed. And it took me a while to realize that she'd go out that back door and hightail it over to the grocery store and add a few things to the menu so she could feed everybody. One of which were the drivers of the Budweiser trucks that carried the Clydesdales. That was about 33 years ago, because our youngest daughter was 2. And they were eating back in the kitchen, and the farm was still behind us, and they would board the horses back there overnight, and the drivers invited us to come back and see them, and I have a picture of our daughter Susan on the back of one of those Clydesdales, and she looks like a tiny little spot sitting up there. They are huge horses, but really, really, really pretty. That's one of a fun memory.
You all had a lot of regular customers at the hotel.
Oh,
Got a
long
card
term.
from one today, thanking us, he's been staying with us for 13 years. And, I got it on my desk, it was special. We've had people stay for years and years. We had Red Granberry stay with us, why don't you talk about some Red Granberry stories? Good
Go
old
ahead,
Red.
I don't remember those stories.
I'm not sure that they're really the best kind of stories to tell, bless his heart.
Well, you had the, steeplechase people too, all
Oh,
the
yeah.
people.
Yeah, early on.
Extra bedroom.
We had some regular events
Yeah,
that
and
we
the Potters used to stay here.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
They stayed with us.
Well, early, when we were the only place out here especially, the steeplechase people would pull up in their vans, I mean, their big trucks, and they had their bars set up in those trucks, and everybody would come out from the rooms and go and party in those, big, I can kind of remember that, but Alec and I were raised, and Jeannie too. Now, Dick was a man of the world because he's 9 whole years older than we are. But we were raised very sheltered. You just can't imagine. And I really, at that point, now I was a senior in high school or graduating, and still wasn't really aware of what was going on in the back of those vans or those big horse trailers that would come in. But it was pretty. I enjoyed watching them because the men had their colors on, or if that's what you call them. You know, the riding pants and their red jackets, and you remember that?
Right, Abbott's.
Yeah, well, it was
Yeah,
pretty. It
of
was
course,
just,
there was horse shows and steeplechase was a big event.
well, we had the horse show back. I mean, they had the Brentwood Chamber.
The derbies.
Very,
The Derby, the horse shows back.
you remember that, Gene?
No, I was gone during that period, yeah.
No, I remember the early ones, I know Dad used to love that, he was a fixture there. But no history of this place would be complete without mentioning Alec Cohen.
Oh, yes.
He was the older Alex in the family. I don't know when Alex started, but he was here faithfully all the time that I worked up here from 1940 for, about 3 or 4 years. And he was still here long after until finally he died some years ago. But Alec knew everybody in Brentwood, everybody knew Alec. He was a part of the family, and just a fine old gentleman of the old school who did everything that was required. He pumped gas, he carried trays.
He sit out
swept
there
the
on
place
his
out.
nail kegs.
Like a Coca-Cola case.
Case, exactly.
When Levada Duffield took the place over, she tried to fire him. And he turned up the next day, and she said, "Alec, I'm not gonna need you right here." He says, "Miss, I go to the place." And he stayed on.
Well, I know he was here around 1960, because we had come home to visit one time. Our oldest daughter was about 4, and we still had a different soda fountain at the time. And things were changing, and Terry and old Alec, actually we called him Old Black Alec. That was the way it was referred at that point.
That was today.